Got it.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to The Power of Our Story, hosted and produced by Sarah Carell. I will be Sarah's gracious host for the evening to introduce Angel. Angel is a friend of ours here at The Power of Our Story and also a sister and neighbor to the north up in Canada. And Angel is an advisor who helps those who have worn the uniform and understands more clearly some of the roadblocks that can come up during transition. Her clarity of the military and first responder journey is truly fascinating, and we'll certainly hear much about that tonight. Um, she works with emergency responders and frontline field professionals and veterans who are transitioning back into civilian life. She can be hired to reclaim that individual's their life's purpose and help them identify who they are outside of the uniform. Um, she believes that when a member dedicates the years in uniform and that uniform becomes a major part of who they are in their being, and leaving that behind is a significant loss. So Angel is a retired military veteran from Canada, and she's an incident investigator and a former peace officer. And her why is you. She lives to support you. So Angel's got pretty storied history, and I'd rather hear it from her than you hearing it from me. So we're going to turn it over to Angel. Angel, thank you for being with us, my friend, and we all look forward to hearing your story and what you are doing now.
Thank you very much for the introduction, David, and I really appreciate you, Sarah, for bringing me up on this. And thank you guys, all of you, for showing up here for my moment. So, as every story has a beginning, doesn't always have to be once upon a time and sound like a fairy tale. Let me just paint you a picture. August 1967. This is in Canada, and it was recorded as Canada's worst random mass murder. This is located in Shell Lake, Saskatchewan. And in this event of the same week, a woman was told, "You can't cancel your wedding. Family have already booked flights. They've already paid for the hotels. I've spent a lot of money on this wedding, so you're getting married. And what you do after is your damn business and on your dime." May, following year later, a call comes into an office. The dispatcher calls Mr. H on his radio. "Mr. H, the hospital called." "Oh my God, is it my mom? She okay?" "No, it's about your wife." "Oh yeah, what about her?" "Well, she had a baby today." "Oh, I didn't even know she was around." From that comment, this gentleman goes back to a residence and says, "What did you have?" She says, "It's a girl." "Well, that's a big disappointment." 2 weeks later, there was a parting of two people that now legally divorced, and a woman then had to raise a girl child that was from a relationship that was very estranged during the entire pregnancy. Now, I am not certain if you folks understand that there is a thing called ACE, and that's an acronym. And we know we love our acronyms, especially in the military, etc. We love our acronyms. But ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. Now, I would like for you guys just to take one moment, and you can play along with me. Now, there is 10 questions that were developed to understand why people have the situations they do when they are later on in their adults, their health concerns, their mental wellness, even what the jobs they choose to get into. So I'm going to give you 10 questions and just kind of mentally check in with yourself. If you want to keep score, there's only 10. So did you ever feel that you didn't have enough to eat, or you ever had to wear like dirty clothes, or you didn't feel like there was someone there to protect you? Did you lose a parent through divorce, abandonment, or death, or any other reason? Did you live with anyone who was depressed, mentally ill, or attempted suicide? Did you ever live with someone who had a problem with drinking or using drugs, including prescription? Did your parents or the adults in your home ever hit, punch, beat, or threaten to harm you? Did you ever live with someone who went to jail or prison? Did a parent or adult in your home ever swear at you, insult you, or put you down? Did a parent in your home ever hit, beat, kick, or physically hurt you in any way? Did you ever feel that no one in your family thought well of you or even thought you were special? Did you experience unwanted contact, such as sexual advancements or sexual comments? Out of those 10 questions, when I sat down and did this after I left the military, I realized I scored 9 out of 10. The problem, the problem with that is that the statistics of those people who then go on to have a really bad outlook, we'll say, a very negative projection for their success, really stems highly on that moment, on those scores. And as soon as you cross over 3, then it starts going downhill in your life. Now, what I also found very fascinating was the fact that after doing my training and courses in mental health and doing my psychology, and then cross-referencing this to working with my brethren, the military, law enforcement, over 80% were showing that they had ACE scores over 4. So that makes you wonder, why did you get in? And the biggest variable is that it's self-preservation. Because bottom line, people in their psychology want to have a choice. And sometimes the choice that you're coming from is not necessarily the choice that you want to still have, so that you will look for escapisms. Now, there is a certain ilk that will say, I had no choice and I went down this path and used like narcotics or alcoholism or whatever escapism they want. And another higher percentage actually get into the careers of law enforcement, police services, firefighter, because they want to feel that they were significant. They want to make a difference and they want to stand out. Now, in that choice level, people also want to just feel empowered. Like I said, that goes back to feeling empowered. We all want to feel that. And one of the worst things in human psychology is that you don't have a choice and you don't have any power. And then that puts you into a victim mode. And that's the last thing people want to live, is a victim mode. So you have a choice. You can start blaming people, or you can take that responsibility. And in the course of all my readings, one of the most greatest books I probably have read in the last 5 years was Extreme Ownership with Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, taking that ownership. And that changed a lot of how I was restructuring and how I was going to evolve. I could choose to be that victim, or I could choose to be that successor. Now, the cards that were dealt is, can we exercise, just even entertain maybe the thought that that was what we needed for our evolution? Maybe I'm talking a little too far, but that's what I started looking when it comes to healing. We have to look at us as a holistic. It's the physical body, it's the mental side of things, and our spirituality. So to touch on the spirituality, is this a life lesson? Was it designed that way for us to grow, to evolve, to be something more, to be the change? And I believe that that was the main foundation I felt I was here for. Now, in my time in the military, I got in the 80s. I was one of the most hated entities because I was one of the first women. We were called crew, combat related environment for women. There were 6 of us. No, sorry, there was 8. And of the 8 of us, there were 6 of us that finished. We were put into the combat arms trades with no quarter. So we trained with the engineers, the pioneers, the armor corps, the infantry guys. Our brother platoon was there, and like I said, we went and did the exact same training. When we finished our training and we were dispatched out to our units throughout the country, I remember coming to a combat engineer group, and a lot of the training school was specialized in explosives. And that year, in 1988, we had, again, one of the worst experiences in Canadian history for a training exercise, where we had a mass fatality due to an explosion on the training field. and several explosive officers, explosive ordnance officers that were in training, perished that day. As I was in that location, as I was doing all the ammo transferring, that was one of my positions as on the logistics side of things, was getting in on all the ammo. It was something I wasn't consciously prepared to deal with, being that we're on our thing is to see human remains scattered for miles. But it was worse than what I seen what happened for the other engineers that actually went in and had to take care of the cleanup. The stories that these people were saying were just pretty horrific. With that said, you know, there were some people that had suffered PTSD, but it was never called PTSD. We never, in fact, PTSD wasn't even coined until into the 90s. In fact, it was the mid 90s. Therefore, these guys were just dealing with baggage that they didn't even know what to deal with. They're having the same situation as guys from Vietnam were. And my thought process is what there's got to be something here for us. There's got to be somebody to talk to, and they didn't even have a debriefing component whatsoever. And maybe I was just way ahead of my time, but I started dropping questions, and then I was reminded, you're not paid to think. As I was saying, I was like one of these. I was a female in a field environment of an old boys club, and I had no business being there, let alone have an opinion. I didn't take that. I didn't take it personally as per se, because of the way I grew up. I thought, what more can what could possibly you guys possibly throw at me that hasn't already been said, hasn't already been inflicted, or I haven't already been punished with? But my perseverance just kept going on, and I was driven. I was driven to make sure that I could keep up and do above and beyond what the majority of my brethren were doing. What I discovered also is while we were in basic training, that we learned very digestible chunks about how to be. They stripped us right down like onion layers, peeled us apart. So when you escape from, let's say, an abusive childhood relationship, like life, and then you come down and they rip you right down to nothing and then start building you, and then you realize, wow, I'm getting 3 square meals a day. Wow, I'm getting dressed in good quality gear every day. Then you start really devoting yourself to that profession more than anything. Then came the time where I did well. I was a decorated veteran. I had Queen's medals. I had excelled in areas. I had Special Service Force Female Athlete of the Year. I dedicated it all my attention to, because I knew that when I put out 100%, I was going to get that reward or that praise. And I just kept getting told, keep bringing home the trophies, girl, and we'll just keep putting you out there, which I thought was great. But then it came down to when I left the military. Now, shortly after Mandarin in Yugoslavia, I got out right before Afghanistan. I kind of came home and said, I really, as a peacekeeper, I didn't sign up for this. This was not what I was about. And there were things, I guess, that I had buried inside of me that I felt like I was accountable to. And again, you sit there with that, I'm following orders, or you didn't have a choice. And that's what started a really strange little seed that was planted in my head. So then when I got out of the military, I realized that I was sitting here, I had a reputation. I had a reputation of being a hard ass. I was a reputation of saying, like, yeah, that's your go-to girl. She's going to get things done. But then when I left the service, all of a sudden, that person no longer existed. That person now was not in a uniform. And I kept having these weird dreams that I was always out of uniform. Like I'd be showing up for parade and all of a sudden I realize, oh, my hat badge is missing. Or I show up for something like, oh my God, I'm in the wrong garb. I'm wearing the wrong pants. I don't know why I was obsessed with this, my dress to deport for showing up in my dreams, but that was part of it. I felt like, oh, as I summarized it, I'm incomplete. When I got out, they also hired a specialist to help me rewrite a resume for me, do resume writing. And he gave me, and I'm not trying to discredit the book, but he gave me what was from the book, What Color is Your Parachute? And as he did all the little series of quizzes and tests, it came back and says, oh, well, that's interesting. And I went, what's that? So what am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to take my career direction? He says, well, it says you should be in the military. I went, really? He's a civilian. He didn't get it. He goes, oh, really? He says, yeah, law enforcement, military. Well, that's funny. I'm just leaving that industry. So we got to find something else. No, but that's what you're best suited for. So then I had to do it on my own. I had to figure out my crap. So now, as a civilian, coming now as civilian, if I can't be a soldier, and I'm really not ready to be a cop at that time, I was trying to get my head cleared. I said, what do I do? And I just remembered, yeah, who was I? What did I love? What did I love? What were my core values? And how can I put this into something that I would want to do? And it came down that I actually decided, no, you know what? I grew up with a hard passion for horses. And I decided that I will take all those skills, follow that passion. I became an equestrian, like a national level equestrian trainer and coach, and instruct not only an instructor but also like a trainer for the horses too. And I did really well in that because I was following that passion. But there was something going on underneath that I had no idea was a ticking time bomb. Because there'd be moments I'd be sitting there in a completely at peace, something of a smell, a piece of music, something would trigger me. And I don't know why all of a sudden I would break down in tears because I had severed myself from the military. They don't like once you kind of left, they just left you there. And I thought, well, fine, if I'm abandoned, then I'm going to figure out my own stuff and I'll figure it out. I didn't have any solutions. There was nothing for us when I left. And but being triggered, I was like, what the hell's wrong with me? This is not my norm. This is not my norm. I'm a hard ass. I can do this. I'm kilt bred. Like we're fighting, we're resilient. We get through stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like I'm realizing I'm grieving. I'm grieving inside for who I was and who I no longer was and why I couldn't connect with anybody because once you've been created to be this beautiful working machine and a military mind, you're not a civilian. And then you're trying to fit back in like a square peg in a round hole. And everybody's wondering, what's your problem? Like, you're not on time. Why are you not on time? You're on my time. Get on my time. People couldn't understand my stress about being timely. And that was one of my little OCD moments. That was OCD. I got accused of my OCD-ness. You know, I want things in their place. That's where I want to. Don't walk in my barn and mess up all my saddles, or I'm going to lose my shit. So, again, people couldn't understand where this is coming from. Then when we like I said, I realized I needed help. I was having started now getting anxiety. Now the anxiety was getting to the point I was like literally thought I was having a heart attack. I was getting the shakes, and the only thing I could think of was to start medicating and start drinking and go to sleep so I could sleep. And then there got to points where this dangerous cocktail I was entertaining was no longer a friend. It was like, where are you going? To the point where I was locked myself into a wardrobe cabinet. I was in Scotland trying to escape my insanity. And I'm sitting there in tears because that night I was having a flashback or something. And I swung deftly out in the middle of the night and I just missed my husband's head and into the headboard and I cut open my knuckles. And it was close enough to the morning where he just got up and said, you got to get your shite together, woman. Like, there's a problem here. There is, and I said, these dreams. I said it was just a dream. Well, whatever it is, you need to sort it out. Well, it ended up that did not happen for us, and we parted company because I couldn't sort my stuff out. So as I'm sitting inside this wardrobe, like going back to there, I really just wanted life to stop. I just wanted to go to sleep and not wake up. My what stopped me was that I'm sitting here with a 13-year-old daughter. I'm thinking, what kind of a example am I really setting for her when all this time she was looking up to me? I remember her little facey when she was standing on the DZ when I came out of a plane and said, isn't that cool? And she's like, just her eyes were like, oh my God, my mom jumped out on planes. She thought it was, fascinating. But I thought, really, now, what am I? Am I going to be an efficient mother to her? Am I going to, what happens when she decides to have kids? Is she going to be able to stand up through those times? Where's her, where's her strength if I'm not going to be there to mentor her? I didn't want anybody else to do that. That was my responsibility. So it pulled me out of that dark hole, and it was a very slow dark hole. I returned back to Canada. She wanted to graduate. They don't have graduation in UK, and so she wanted to graduate with the whole nine, the tiara, the pretty dress, the whole 9 yards, and I honored that. But she went her path, and I was sitting there with myself, going, okay, now what do I do? Um, and I carried on doing some of my training until I got hurt. I got hurt really bad. I had a riding accident. It was, sorry, not even riding. It was finished riding. We were walking from the out arenas. It was October. We're walking across the ground that was really frosty, and we came in towards the stables where the barn, the concrete was, and the stallion tried to bow up, and I just looked at him and pointed my finger and said no, and he pulled back, and he sat down on his haunches like a dog, but his left hind leg connected with my right knee and blew it completely out. So ACL, MCL, everything, let's put it this way, everything was torn out of the ligaments. The only thing holding my leg together was the patella, ligament, skin, and femoral artery. Oh, and the genes. I realized, and then when the horse fell on top of me after that, it shattered my tibia. So a spiral fracture on top of that. And I realized that everything that I had worked so hard for to get towards the worlds and in the equestrian world now was gone. They told me it was going to take several surgeries, probably 2 years of the surgeries, and lots of rehab before they could really get my leg functioning back again. That was so the one thing that was holding me together professionally, following your passion. I felt that life, that moment right there, was had turned on me, and I felt like, wow, fate just really. I guess this is punishment, and for some reason that's where I slip back into that victim mode again. I guess this is punishment. This is what I deserve this because maybe my past being in the military was not the greatest. And then I went back into, that's when I decided I was going to go back into the law enforcement side of things. And I had, I was working with a canine unit. We were doing almost like a proactive first responder response to any industrial or residential break and enters. We would come under the dogs of canines, sweep through. The actual city police force had their own canine unit where they actually like were taking down, would call in for specialty work, taking down people in stolen vehicles and such. And from that point, working with them, working with the peace officers, then I decided I was going to yeah, somebody approached me and said, you're really good at this. I said, well, I loved forensics. I just wish I could, figure it out. And they said, well, you should go back to college and do that. And I went, I can't. My physics and my ADHD brain just not going to work together. And then somebody said, okay, what about occupation health and safety? You still have to do investigations. And that's the path. Then I started coming out of the law enforcement side again, back into specializing in field investigations and logistics. Every time I came back to one of these occupations, it was always the same kind of concept. It was a little bit of that camaraderie. Again, you're putting on a uniform, you're seen as a certain authority figure, and it just kind of kept me at bay. It kept me at bay. And I again, like I was saying, I believed I was ahead of my time because I'd even stated I was offered because of my equestrian background, I was offered a position to assist at a women's correctional facility on the inmates rehabilitation, so that they could be for their eligibility for parole. And I thought, well, this is great. We should use this for the veterans. And when I approached the government on the Canadian side of things, I was shut down hard. Like, and the first thing out of their mouth was, "You're not a psychiatrist. You do not have a PhD. You have no business even going here." And I was jaded. I was, well, wait a second. I got skin in the game. I got time in the trenches, and these guys can relate to me. If I've taken a certain amount of training, why can't I fulfill this? Why can't we do something for the veterans? And it wasn't until almost 10 years later that those programs started to evolve. I was just again ahead of my time, I guess. And but again, I just learned something very important that moment, and that was that again, your path is your path meant to be that moment, or you just keep pushing through it, and that's what it was. Every time I seemed to hit a roadblock or I hit a trouble or another knockdown, like the Japanese proverb, you fall down 7 times, you get up eight, and that's how I just kept saying no. I just got to keep moving. I have to have a belief. And the core, it wasn't until I went and did a coaching training in Atlanta with a bunch of people who had more letters behind their name than I could dream of. And I really wanted to understand how can I be that change. And as I presented, so when it got to be my turn to present my component, the very first thing was like, you got to stop coming from that place of anger and because you're not going to beat a broken system. And that's when the first light bulb came on. Oh my gosh, you're right. I can't fight a broken system. But he said you can be the lighthouse, stand there and shine. And so those people that are out there in the dark looking for something are going to hone in onto you. All you have to do is just stay being you, be your authentic self, and just tell your story. From that moment on, that's when I realized, okay, that's what I'm doing. I dedicated my academics to making sure that I was going to learn how to help those who needed to see that light. I'd be that luminary in the darkness. And it's done well. I've put a lot of energies into that, and then I thought to myself, I had a really strange, bizarre incident that I can't make this up. I I shared this with Sarah. It was I got it in my mind that okay, I've taken care of the body now. I've taken care of my mind now. I need to tap into some part of my spirituality. And so I took it upon myself to, I don't know, combine two, three passions at once. I know that my grandmother on my mom's side is we call us Black Irish. That's when you've got a Spanish Irish influence into your gene pool. So I've always had a love for the Spanish horses, and I wanted to see where's well, all what was in Spain, but also at the same time there was a sabbatical to go up to the monastery at Montserrat, and you could go to the shrine of the Black Madonna. Now, I will confess I'm not a religious person uh, due to my upbringing, but the concept that I did realize is that I still felt like I had a lot on my heart that was not allowing me to progress forward, that I was beating myself up because I was such a bad person. I was convinced I was a bad person. And it wasn't until that morning, like on Sunday morning, when the bells were ringing, and I'm standing there at Montserrat looking out over to the Mediterranean on the of the Mediterranean Sea. I mean, past Barcelona, and I just all of a sudden was just in this beautiful euphoria, and I broke down and I cried, and all I was just saying like, I'm here to buy back my soul. I'm here to please forgive me. Just I need to feel like I've got my soul and I'm going to be okay. And I had got like a literally like this voice in my head that just said, like, you've always been forgiven. It's you. It's you that needs to forgive you to move forward. And from that moment on, I went back when I got back into North America. I was on job sites and people kept saying, "Are you pregnant?" I'm like, "Why?" They said, "Your face is just glowing. Like you look so just I wish I had what you had. You're just glowing. You just seem so at peace." And I went, well, thank you. Obviously, then I guess I forgave myself finally, and I'm in a good place. That happened in August. By the time I came back, December 6th, I was asleep, and I've had a night terror, which I hadn't had in a very long time. I dreamt I was stuck in a gas chamber again, and I was fighting to get out of there, and I couldn't wake up. And finally, when I did wake up, I'm actually coughing and choking, and realized like there's smoke in my house. Now, it had been minus 38 all day on Saturday. So I had the fires burning up. I had a 3 level split, and I had the fires burning up in the upper bedrooms and living room area. And I thought, oh, it was my fault. I shut down the flue too tight and I got blowback coming in from the smoke. So I opened up the windows, fanned it out, covered my plants, and fanned out the smoke. And I thought, okay, open the flue, making sure it's open. And I went back to bed for another hour. At 4 a.m., now the air is poison because my house is on fire. And I was asleep. I could have been out a lot earlier. I could have prevented like a lot more loss, I imagine, if I had acknowledged that there was a fire going on then. And after the fire, like I lost everything, except I managed to get out of this situation. And I am a bit of a voracious reader for a big part of my life, but the literature that I had been really accumulating over the years, of course, was on self-help development and psychology and spirituality. So then we're on, oh yeah, and my health and fitness to boot. But I was, we were saying like I had easily over $10,000 of just on books, on literature that I have accumulated for knowledge. And a friend of mine who was a university professor, when she heard that I lost everything, she was like, if I lost my library, I'd be gutted. I'd be just, I couldn't even think right. And she goes, let me help you rebuild. It's my gift. It's Christmas. Let me do this for you. Being able to even accept other help from other people when you've been such a hard ass that was a very humbling moment for me. But I had friends who said, like, you've been there for so many, it's your turn now to accept. You have to be able to give as well as receive. We went into the bookstore, and what ended up happening was she started grabbing a bunch of the books that I'd already read, and then finally to the point I was starting to get that anxiety, that overwhelm, and I said, all right, stop. I only need one book. She goes, okay, what is it? Whatever you want. I went, I don't know right now. And she's, well, you're kidding. I went, no, I believe I'll be led to the book I need, the one book I need right now to just put me in place and give me some peace of mind to what's going on in the universe for me. I was walking through the aisles of all these used books from the university library, and this blue velvet covered book had some gold insignia on it caught my eye in the sunlight, and I looked over and I grabbed it, and it says to I said, oh, fascinating. This is the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Hindi Bible. No, that's not part of my, I've studied theology, but that's not my religion. And so I just sat there for a moment and held a book like this and took a deep breath and just said, whatever is the message in this book, I hope, like, I'll adhere to it. And I did. I randomly opened a book. It was chapter 10. And I'm kind of reading on it. I was talking about the material things. And then I flipped the page, and on like a yellow sticky note on that page was a quote from the actual Christian Bible and 1 Corinthians 3:15, 3:15, 16. Yeah, 3:15, 16. It said that if any man's work should be burned, he shall suffer a great loss, but he himself will be saved as so by fire. So they'll know you that you're a temple of God and your foundation is solid. That was everything I could possibly ask for. That, okay, you're right, I have been forgiven, and it's my job now to make sure I reciprocate that back. That I carry on, like what I believed in for helping other people was the most important thing I needed to stay focused on, and that's what really drove me there. So the thing I need to emphasize now to those that are leaving the military, that have been soldiers, and those that will be police officers or firefighters, is that you need to know your, it's now time, like the way that you've been caping up and clocking in on a regular basis, you've got to find that way out. And sometimes we don't realize it, that is a significant loss to your identity. It is a huge loss. And to be able to redesign yourself, it's going to take some time. The thing that irritated me, as I was saying, dealing with broken systems, is that it takes a long time for us to open up and trust people. Because I've just learned how to, I've, especially being a female, I had to cash out my femininity and probably do things that I wouldn't normally, a normal woman wouldn't, to be able to, be with her male counterparts and play the game. And that becoming back to a civilian and picking that, where you have to know your core values. And a lot of people don't even know what that even means, define their core values to, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, like what would you sacrifice above the other? And that's where we have to start. Because what I also found out is that with the broken system, and I'm not trying to discredit anybody with doctorate degrees or whatever, but there's no law that states that you can't use coaching modalities or mentors or advisors. It doesn't always have to be somebody who's clinical. Because I found that when I was just having a really bad day, and I was like, okay, I'm having anxiety. I can talk to my doctor, and if he gives me a prescription for Ativan, it doesn't mean I'm addicted to it. I just need to stop the freaking train wreck. Just take that edge off. I need to stop the freaking train wreck. And that was challenged. Like, are you all right to do your job? Are you all right to drive a vehicle? Should we take away the gun? Should we take away the badge? Should we check on your family? And are they being okay? To get that kind of harassment is unnecessary. So we don't need to be, I think that if you're just having a bad day, you should be able to talk to somebody about your bad day. And that's why I really love what we're doing here, because we should be able to have those conversations without judgment. My intention of moving forward is to make sure that people have a safe exit strategy, that they don't have to compromise their pensions. They don't have to compromise who they are just to finish off their job, and so that they're, get to fill out the rest of their lives the way they see fit on their terms, rather than being terminated because something that was written in their file. And yeah, so that's where we are today. And I'm open for questions, and that's what I've got to give to you for now.
That is awesome. Well done. Good job. And not often left speechless, but I am today. And thank you for being open to taking questions. Ryan's got his hand up, so we'll start with Ryan.
Ryan.
First off, Angel, thank you for sharing that with, yeah, I'm speechless. I think it's, you shared a different perspective on, a lot of different things, which was absolutely amazing. And I'll be reaching out to you personally to pick your brain on some stuff and whatnot. But I've also learned probably not to piss you off because you have training in explosives and you'll probably blow my house up. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Nat and Chris, did you have something?
I always have something, you know that. So, by the way, I think this is the first time I've seen
You're a man of few words, my friend. A man of few words.
Well, I just want to touch on my experience toward my end of my career. Most of you guys know I had a really nasty gunfight 2016. My 20th anniversary, my best friend lost his dog in a deployment. That pushed me over the edge. And Angel, you touched on this just a little bit. I wanted to kind of fill in the blanks, I guess, for everybody else and myself, that in March of 2018, I got awarded the Medal of Valor. And in April of 2018, I got put on the desk for 5 weeks of light duty, if you will. And I found my job was now to do busy work. And I found myself out in the parking lot scraping a barbecue grill. That's what I was pretty much reduced to. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell happened here? I mean, I have now been pretty much ousted by the people that I had pretty much lost all respect for, and that played a huge part in me wanting to leave. And I did. I'm not gonna lie, I left very, very angry when I retired. I made full back to full duty. Was able to prove to myself that I could still put the uniform on, go chase bad guys, all this great stuff. But I've still got some anger, even though Natalie's like, dude, let it go. It's been like 4 years, but I had a tremendous amount of anger when I left. And side note, that whole thing, I know you touched on this a little bit too, that Natalie calls it, she says, I've never taken off the uniform, on some level. And I have never really lost that identity fully yet. And be perfectly honest with you, I'm not sure I even want to. I mean, because that was such a big part of my life for, over 2 decades. It was huge, and it still is. I mean, I'm still a big part of the community and so forth and so on. But So yeah, that's me and my few words. So
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. The one thing I'd like to add to that is you said you never really lost your identity. And I don't know that you need to. It's actually something I was just talking about today in a resilience class. Um, yes, we hold that identity, and we should, to some extent, shed it to be able to move on to the next chapter and not hold on to yesteryear. However, I think it's important that we take that identity and leverage it for whatever comes next. And I think that's where the
Absolutely.
big piece is. So it can always still be a part of you. It'll always still be there, but it's not what makes you you. It's a part of you. It's one piece of the pie, but leverage it for the rest of the pie. And I think that's the only reason I said that is something we already talked about today and when I was teaching earlier today. But
First of all, I want to say thank you. And wow, I just am in awe hearing your story and your experience and how you were able to move through it and pull it all together. And I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Thank you.
thanks, Terry, for sharing that. Todd?
Oh, yeah, as one hard ass Highlander to another. That's quite the story. What you talked about with identity, mine was really kind of ripped away because my firefighting career ended with an injury. I took a dive through a staircase in a house fire, and I was a third generation first responder. My dad and my grandfather were both sheriff's deputies, and so I grew up with that. And so to me, it was genetic. It was DNA level, that identity, and it was so important to me to fulfill that clan legacy that I hid my injury because I knew that if I reported it, my career would be over. And it was over anyway when it happened, but I couldn't accept it. And that, along with just the experience of the job, did a number on me that I still deal with. And I ended up just picking another job almost at random because I didn't care. It didn't matter any longer. I'd failed the family name, and I still do the job that I picked at random now. I'm an IT geek, and it always just felt like it was something to fill in for the gap that I felt, and it's been a struggle for 30 years. I mean, I still, every single time I see a fire engine go by emergent, I almost have this uncontrollable urge to jump on the back of the damn thing. And I'll tell you, this group has helped a lot with that. And it wasn't until I got into therapy, thank the good Lord above, for EMDR, that I've found a way. Chris, you talked about you don't want to let go of that anyway, and I never have let go of that identity. But knowing that I can take my own experience and turn it around and maybe be able to help some of my brothers and sisters that are still wandering around in the dark, that can be my identity. And that's why that's why for me, being a peer support specialist is, that's my goal. That's really what I want to do, because God, I don't want any of my brothers and sisters to go through the shit that I went through. So thank you for telling your story. It was awesome.
Thank you, Todd.
Thanks,
Appreciate your
Todd.
share.
Marshall, you're up, bud.
So just thank you so much for, like the trust in sharing your story and giving us the opportunity to learn from it. I think that's tremendous. And everything you say about identity, I think Todd, right before me, what he said super resonated. And just the identity of these trades, right, is so integral to who we are, and the idea of what life is like, on the other side of that experience. It's such an uncharted path, and I'm so thankful for this community, and for the opportunity to be a part of it, because what it sounds to me like is this is about, coming together as a group and talking about charting that path on the other side of the experience. And there's, so much value in the people who have risen their hand and stood up to the call in the past, right? And these are people who are still there to stand up and are ready to rise to the call. And so let's do everything we can to magnify that, magnify their impact, and to help all of us as a community walk that path. So, thanks for letting me be here.
Great.
Marshall, thanks for joining us. That's very powerful, and thank you for that narration and description of your vision. I can't agree more, and everybody's nodding along, so I know everybody's in the same place. What just made, when you said that, made me think that there's not a cop on this call that doesn't still turn their head at every crash they roll by, no matter how insignificant it may be, or it could be a rollover and an explosion into a freaking telephone pole with the world on fire. But we all want to, it never leaves you. And I think that's that piece of my identity, but that's a whole nother discussion for another day. Sarah, go ahead.
First off, Angel, you shared so beautifully. I appreciate your strength. I appreciate your grit to keep pushing forward, to keep being curious, to keep learning, to not be held back by the barriers that other people have that are before you. And I'm really proud of you. I think you have so much to offer in this arena, not only this arena, but all arenas. For mental health. Your insight is powerful. Some of the things that hit me, and from just being a human being myself, I'm not law enforcement, not a first responder, not veteran, but I am a human being. So I do understand some of the things that our first responders and our veterans go through. I can relate. I can say me too, just like David always says that's how we do connect, is by saying me too. And but from hearing so many stories from law enforcement and veteran about the grieving, so many times that's not talked about. And those are, grieving can be, feelings that people don't always understand. Like, again, they're part of the system. They get out, and then all of a sudden the feelings come out. They come up. There's no reboot. There's no cadet training or whatever. And so what do you do with that? What do you do with those feelings? And then you talked about the self-forgiveness. And, I think that is a huge thing that is not always talked about. And it doesn't even mean that there's something big to forgive yourself. It is that conditioning, right? Things that can be in that conditioning in early childhood. And so many of these things are brought into these fields. And I think as somebody who's kind of an outsider who really wants to support our protectors, I think that's the thing that is so heartbreaking to me, is that there isn't that really great reboot that say, listen, you are people of courage. But now there's a new mission, and that's for really being able to take a time out and really process what you have just been through. And it's huge. I do want to say that one of my boys played football after college in Spain, and we went to the Montserrat.
Montserrat, yeah.
That is the most powerfully spiritual, amazing place. I was feeling that when you were sharing. So anyway, I just want to share that with you. Thank you so much, Angel.
Cheers. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah. Always insightful and recapping and inserting thoughts and opinions. So thank you. I appreciate that. And I will take an opportunity to go through some of my notes. As those of you that have been around me, you know that I'm a note taker. And I just like revisiting some of the stuff to summarize it. I've done the ACEs thing. I help our program teach the ACEs philosophy in some of our schools here. We just got a grant actually for it, which is pretty cool. I'm a 6 on the ACEs score, and everybody that I've ever worked with that I've talked to about this, mostly retired guys now, they're all 4s to 7s for the most part. So yes, the more broken you were as a child, the more likely you are to become a cop, which I never really figured out how that shakes out, but it's true. And you mentioned Jocko's book, Extreme Ownership. So I'm not a reader, or I wasn't a reader. I am. Ryan's laughing. But about, I don't know when that book came out, probably 7 or 8 years ago now, maybe a little bit more. That was the first book I had read since high school, or since college, I should say. And read it on midnights. I was starting to fall apart already at that point in my career. I read this book, I'm like, holy crap, my agency sucks. And this is how it gets done. And I didn't know who he was. I kind of had heard of him on, I don't even remember anymore. And I was like, wow, that's an interesting title for a book. And so I read it, and it was literally life-changing for me. And that's how it's done. And that guy's awesome. And if you have ever heard, I forget who the interview was by with him, his philosophy to every problem is good. You come to him with a problem, his response is good. If you say that something's broken, he says good. If you say you're broken, he says good. And his thing is, it's always an opportunity to do something bigger and better. So if something sucks, something's broken, something's effed up, good, fix it. And it'll help you grow. And so if you haven't, just Google Jocko and the word good, and you'll be able to watch that whole interview. It's unbelievable. The way that guy thinks is crazy to me. So you had talked about spirituality as well, and I'm also not a religious person. I grew up Jewish, and we're raising my kids Jewish, but I struggle with the whole relating to religion thing. I envy those that do get it and that it is part of their life, because I think it's so supportive and so meaningful. I just, for some reason, for me, I can't get there. However, spirituality is not religion. And I think you have found that, which is awesome. And it took me a while, but there was a course I took at our agency by a rabbi, coincidentally, who is no longer a rabbi because he no longer believes in religion, which I found very interesting. And he's a spirituality guy now. But that whole revelation and giving yourself grace and finding that forgiveness for things that you felt that broke you, or that you were responsible for breaking you, is so important. And having that moment that you had, I think, is really special. Where am I? I don't know. I lost my thing here. So in New Jersey, we have the RPO program, which is something I think that was similar to what you were talking about, and teaching resilience and giving people and officers that place to go, which I think is important. And it's not a counselor, it's a peer. And so that level of peer support group is important. So I'm glad that you had that experience as well. And the safe exit strategy, I love that. I love that phrase. It's something we're trying to do here in New Jersey as well, by doing a military style TAP program to exit officers out when they're retiring, to try to get past that period of vulnerability where they are most likely to hurt themselves or get in that dark place. And Sarah, you were talking about debriefing, I believe, and we do that through call to call as officers, or even I think in the military, people do that through critical incidences, but we don't have a career ending debriefing. And I think that's an interesting concept, and I'd love to explore that further. And that may be an opportunity to avoid people from having those nightmares like you had and I had. And that whole, I think that's a pretty cool idea. Do a career debriefing. It's more than an hour, for sure. But that's a great concept, and I love that. So sorry taking up your time, just thinking out loud here at this point. But Angel, go ahead, back to you. Thank you for everything. You're awesome. You're a true badass, and everybody here, I think, will attest to that. And I'll throw it back to your way. Oh, Scott, go ahead, Scott. You're up, bud.
I had to unmute myself here. Not used to doing that. Hey, Angel, I came in late. I was involved in some stuff and then realized you were on tonight. So I came on as soon as I remembered. And so I caught up where you had just talked about going to Spain. And that was an incredible revelation, for lack of a better word. When you're hearing a voice that's so specific to you and to what you're going through, and the fact that you are forgiven, that's incredibly important. And then it comes down to you, right? That you have to forgive yourself. In life, so many times we just have a hard time with dealing with the me, right? That I have the power to do so much in my life. And it's easy to get caught up in the things that happen every day that, can push you down, whether it's people, whether it's circumstances. And we forget that in the end, we have the power in the decisions we make and how we react to things, that people can steal that from you if you let them, right? And it's hard remembering that, okay, in the end, there's people that help us, but in the end is me. And then when you strip away the W for the we or the M for the me, you're left with an E, and that's the eternal. And when you went in and selected that book, when your friend was saying, "Hey, I want to help you here," and you selected that book and you opened it up, and it was interesting that it was talking about material things, right? Because you just lost everything. And then when you look and see that sticky pad, and it's talking very specifically again to you, you just went through a fire, right? And you survived that fire. Now, it's kind of metaphorical, but it's also very literal. That is one of the most powerful stories I've heard in a long time. And I remember one of the other calls here, you shared that story. And I just thought that was so incredible. And I've thought a lot about that since, and that's been a couple of weeks, I think, whatever call that was. But I'm a person of faith, and I don't think it doesn't get any clearer than that. I mean, that is incredible, that you are able to receive and hear that, and then you're moving forward and you're doing something with it, right? You're helping to heal yourself, and then you're helping others. And in the end, I think that's what we're here for, is to help others. And there's a lot of ways to do that. So thank you for what you're doing. And I'm looking forward to, you coming on and, chatting with me here next month. So,
Okay. Absolutely, Scott.
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah, God bless you. Yeah.
Thank you. Cheers.
Amazing,
My,
Scott.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Angel.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just thank you, Scott. You're always awesome and
Mhm.
so helpful and insightful. Go ahead, Angel.
I just want to touch on one thing there. I heard there's always been, certain things in where you were told, you hear a phrase, you hear something that just sticks with you. And somebody had said to me that, religion, organized religion, like I said, I was burned from it. So then they say that religion was for those who are afraid of going to hell, and spirituality was for those that had already been through it. And I went, well, that's an interesting take. I'll accept that. And my grandmother had also stated something that was really profound. Just when you think you're at the lowest, and my grandmother said, "Do you realize, like, the most expensive sword has been pounded and folded and in fire 1,000 times before it became a $7 million sword?" She said, "Your creator isn't out there to destroy you, just make you the finest." So I was like, "Oh, okay, thanks for the goosebumps, Gran." Appreciate that. And and I just want to point one thing out. We're all diamonds in the rough. If you think about it, we're all started off as diamonds in the rough, and we've gone through a lot of pressure for what we've done. And it takes actually 58 faucets to make a real diamond. So every time you get knocked, another notch comes off here, gets knocked out of here. Something gets knocked, like, taken away. I've got firm belief that that's for our greater design, so that we are brilliant. And I would just want to make sure that everybody realizes that you are worthy, you are enough, and you guys are just, yeah, you're all beautiful. Thank you.
As are you, Angel, and thank you. You're such a awesome life and spirit and light for all of us here. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so vulnerable and so insightful with your wisdom that you've learned along your journey, and sharing that with us. I think you're awesome.
Thanks, Dave.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Daniel. See your hand.
Yeah, I just want to, give a shout out to us people with a 0 ACE score. Thank you very much. But I think I'm still a little messed up. But I offset that by being married to my lovely wife, who has a ACE score of 9. And of course, she's in a helping profession, as she is a mental health provider. And she's really what helped me and saved me. So kudos to those that have a high score, and also kudos to those who have a low score.
Can I just add something? As a girl that has a 2, but is a career nurse, so somehow whatever happened in my childhood and growing up, I became the person that wanted to take care of everyone and everyone else's needs, because that's what nurses do. We help you get better. I think you guys covered everything that I would have said, but there's from the viewpoint of me, the girl that believes in faith, that always believes in hope, when I had patients that were dying, and, we always wanted to give that positive thing, whatever it was. So for me, my faith was always strong. But, we all know psychology. We've all got something that we've gone through, which is how we ended up here. I have a friend that took her life, so I've dealt with that. I've dealt with lots of trauma throughout my career that, like you mentioned at the time, I didn't know it was trauma. I didn't know I had PTSD. I was just doing my job, going and going and going, because that's what I had to do. That's what I was supposed to do. But in psychology, if all of us have some kind of background, Carl Jung is someone that's well known, and there's a quote that says, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." And I think that's what makes all of us so good at what we do and why we do what we do, because we've all been there. I know I've been there, and I know that's the reason behind my passion, because I won't share my story right now because we're on time, but what I went through, I don't want anyone else to go through. I think trust, you mentioned trust. Trust is the biggest thing. I joke with a friend, like, I don't trust anyone. I don't care who you are. You have to earn my trust, and it's going to take a long time to get there. But that's because of what I've gone through. But all of that makes all of us easier to relate to, and makes us, better position is not the word. My priest says, you're here because to help others. So this is what we do. But it makes all of us more relatable, and to be able to help that other person that is there in need, that we see what we've gone through, that nobody was there to help us when we went through it. So that's why we do what we do. And thank you for all of you guys. I haven't been here for a while, but thank you for doing what you do.
Awesome. Thank you, Brenda. I appreciate that, as always. Anybody have anything they want to end with before we close out? Going once, Scott, Ryan, good.
In case y'all have been living under a rock and not following my LinkedIn, June 22nd and 23rd, I will be very fortunate to be hosting Siobhan and Marshall at my agency for a 2-day training course. I would welcome all of you to come down and attend it. She and Marshall are brilliant minds when it comes to resiliency and trauma and trying to help everybody be better at what they do. So if anything, it's 2 days down here in the wonderful Charleston, South Carolina beaches. So come on down and hang out. And if any of you do decide to come down, I will tell you that you are all welcome to stay here. My door is always open. So just throw that out there.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. And Sarah, want to close it out?
Hey, David, I got one thing really quick.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. To Angel, my apologies. I just like talk about myself all the time. That's pretty much all I ever do. But your story is actually very, very beautiful, and I didn't acknowledge that. My apologies for that. Natalie and I have been talking about it on the side. Very, very moved. It was just an amazing story. Thank you for sharing. So.
Thank you, Chris.
Awesome.
I'm glad that you went in front of me. There you go. It was beautifully told, Angel. You know, I feel like I just, because of the different groups and the things that I hear on the different groups, and like when spirituality comes up, you know, Christ is powerful. And it's like, for anybody who believes in Christ, it's, if you want to know God, just get to know Christ through the scriptures. And so many people have to relearn because of things that were presented in their childhood. So I just want to share, it's a beautiful thing. It is absolutely pure, unconditional love. But where there's people and there's churches and religions, it's a mess like everything else, right? So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's powerful. It's beautiful. Have Angel's courage and grit and curiosity, and take another step of checking it out. That's all I want to say. So thank you again, David, for taking over and facilitating.
Absolutely.
And Angel.
And thank you for
job.
sharing that that piece of religion and spirituality. I think it's really special. And like I said, I truly envy those that are there, because I think that's such a beautiful thing to have in your life. Hopefully someday I'll figure it out.
Well, you're surrounded, David, and we all love you. So, you know, I don't know.
We'll see. And Angel, any parting words?
No, I just appreciate being, like I said, given this environment to share. And I hope, like I said, there was takeaways for you folks. And at any time, I believe I'm pretty much connected with everybody. I believe on LinkedIn. If I'm not, please by all means, do reach out. I've always had philosophy that maybe because I work in the mental health as still a volunteer at the Mental Health Association as a distress call taker, and just sometimes all you need is somebody just there to listen, just without judgment, just someone so you can vent. And then, and I'm not here to save your world or give you all the answers, but I am here to listen. If you just feel like I'm having like the shittiest day of my life, and I just want to be able to talk with someone who is not going to judge it or try to fix me. Just let me talk. That's all I need. So,
Awesome. Thank you for that. You're
cheers.
definitely a special person. And I think, be careful what you wish for, because that phone's going to start ringing. It's, but awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sarah, for having this platform for everybody to feel comfortable in sharing and coming and being part of this family. And it's truly, at least what I find, that it is a family for sure. And I feel closer to you than most people that I've known for ages. So thank you for everybody, and thank you, and have a great night. Angel, thank you again.
Cheers.
And
Thank you.
if anybody wants to stick around, stick around.
Night, everybody.